William Clarke. Clarke with an E on the end. Um, Again, one of my favorite players, and someone I've played along to his records for decades on end, and he's particularly pleasurable to play along with. Although I can't do a lot of stuff he does, like playing that chromatic. As I say, he's another player who was mentored by George Harmonica Smith, which is a reason to keep George Smith, uh, for George Smith to have his own episode, because he mentored some great players and kind of made a harp village uh, on the West Coast. It takes a village to raise William Clarke and Rod Piazza. Um, and who else? James Harmon? Who else? They've got to tell me, I guess. Um, but, okay, like Rod Piazza, and this is one way you can tell how effective George Smith was and how meaningful he was as a mentor. I guess Clarke played with George Smith, played with him on stage for years on end in the 70s, whereas Piazza was in the 60s, I guess, or Clarke maybe even 70s to 80s, Piazza 60s to 70s. Um, and like Piazza, William Clarke does a song called Tribute to George Smith.
What we'd like to do at this time, ladies and gentlemen, is a little tribute to the late, great George Harmonica Smith. Now, I had the pleasure of working alongside of George for about 6 years, and let me tell you something. The cat really got me straightened out on a whole lot of different kind of things. One of them was he showed me how to blow that big chromatic harmonica. So this is our own little special tribute to George Smith, the king of the blues chromatic harmonica.
Okay. Um, a big, third position minor key sound on a chromatic, a real fat, chunky tone. Again, like probably if he was playing and then George was playing and they were playing like that, you couldn't necessarily tell who was who. He learned to play like George Smith, but he doesn't only play like George Smith. Um, in fact, he's absorbing influences from everywhere, like all these guys in the 80s, 70s, 80s. He's all the guys we've talked about. He's kind of an anthology of harmonica moves from the earlier eras and the great players, um, and getting more and more distinctive as he went along. Uh, Partly because you're sort of questing for a style and a voice after that isn't just a tribute to your masters. Okay. Um, well, I guess just let me try a couple things to give you a flavor of his playing. I suppose if I were comparing him to previous players, players we've talked about, of course, George Smith, as I just did, uh, I think that I guess I would connect him to Butterfield. He does play a lot of amplified cross harp or acoustic back from the mic cross harp, uh, with a lot of forward drive and momentum. Although I also think he swings, and I think he swings, especially on the chromatic kind of, or especially in these minor key workouts. Um, So I hesitate to just drop him into the Paul Butterfield, James Cotton kind of ahead of the beat, driving, rocking thing. He definitely does that. But he does a lot of other stuff too. I guess I've been re-listening to William Clarke and plugging some holes and stuff in the oeuvre. There's a lot out there. And just reminding myself that there's a lot going on, and there might be even more than maybe I had him too categorized because he can do a lot of things. Um, well, here's one that's from a compilation called The Early Years. So I figure this is more or less probably when he's playing with George Smith. He's looking very young here. Let's do Hittin' Heavy by William Clarke. Okay. I mean, I'm not even sure everything that's going on there. When he takes off into the upper end, does he switch to a chromatic? I mean, is he playing a diatonic when he's doing these riffs, like Walter riffs and stuff like this? Like, this is really pretty complex what's going on here. And the friggin' playing it's rocking. It's hard. Like I say, flying up into the upper end like that. I mean, if it's a diatonic, it's super technical. Okay. And if it's a chromatic, then the lower diatonic stuff is super blues chunky, and just and Walter-esque. So I don't. It's funny listening to that. I'm not sure what he's playing. So that's I guess that's intriguing. All right. I guess trying a few just moments here. Okay, I mean, I guess let's talk a little bit about William Clarke. I was always a little worried about William Clarke. First of all, he sang all the time, sort of every album, maybe multiple times on most albums, about being broke. So you always had the feeling like he's struggling like shit, man. I hope he makes it. And then I guess he died in the '90s, in the late '90s, in his 40s, I think. And I guess like a number of these people, maybe it was lifestyle choices that seems to be hinted at here and there online. So all of that in a way connects him with all kinds of players and histories. Though again, he's a guy that you could really wish had stuck around. Okay, so he has a lot of influences, though, and like I say, not just George Smith. He's definitely influenced by Magic Dick. He's one of the few straight blues harp players who took on Magic Dick. I mean, Clarke is dead now, so he can't mind me saying this. I assuming you can just hear the that's so Dick, and he will do it. So here's one thing is he's a song about being broke. This is a song about pawning everything you own. Maybe I'll start it out and I'm going to go to the harp solo. Another thing I want to say about William Clarke, he's one of the best singers we've seen in this whole run. Okay. I mean, maybe only Junior Wells is better. And this again is something that's hit me listening to him, re-listening to him, is how strong a singer he is and how expressive. I wish I'd seen him. Anyway, Pawn Shop Bound by William Clarke from the really fine album around 90 called Serious Intentions. I guess the two albums I really loved back in the day were Serious Intentions and Blowin' Like Hell. Here's Pawn Shop Bound. Man, and I mean, again, to say with Butterfield, like one note can really, he hits it real hard. And it sounds a lot like Butterfield in that. But he goes Dick here in the middle of the song. Brought my TV, my ring. To put the food on my table, baby. I'm gonna call everything. Well, I mean, he does like maybe a verse of Butterfield, a verse of Dick, a verse of Butterfield. Man, that playing, when he plays like Dick, he plays just like Dick, which is not that easy. And no one was really doing it, but he was. I think any harp player was listening to as much Jay Giles and stuff as I was around that would have known that was a tribute to Magic Dick. And would have been delighted by it as a tribute to Magic Dick. Like, he plays it great. With maybe just a little more chunk in the tone than Dick would give it, which is cool too. He doesn't really give a lot of inside the song dynamics where it flows from real soft to real intense and back again in the course of a single song. Although it's not that he can't do that and doesn't do it at times. It's not his métier though. But what he does do is gives you a quite a different vibe as you shift from song to song. So just praising the third position / chromatic style work. These are some of the best like harp instrumentals of this whole period. All right, so this is one called The Work Song, also from Serious Intentions. And I certainly played along with this many times on with third position diatonic. I guess he's probably playing a chromatic, but you can do this on a third position diatonic. Maybe not every note. Or maybe he's pulling notes that surprise me. Sweet jazzy thing. And this is his swing note. Ooh, that's one of my favorite harp lines. That's one of my favorite harp solos. That's one of my favorite songs. The Work Song by William Clarke. It's so juicy, and like I've said occasionally, like that there is not an improvised harp solo. You know, that is a written harp instrumental. That's really a great like jazz kind of Dave Brubeck sounding jazz thing. Uh, but also has great drive and great blues feeling and stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. Like this is some great playing. To give you one more example along these lines, "Greasy Gravy" from Serious Intentions. Very similar, right? Is it same? Okay. I think that's a great sound. And very kind of original to Clarke, I think. Like I said, maybe sort of Dave Brubeck kind of modified bop sound. Um, but he can play like real juicy, fun cross harp riffs and stuff too, kind of like Portnoy, let's say. Um, so, how about this one? That's a great blues singer. That's a great blues song. And boy, that's a fun harmonica riff to play. Bam, ba do 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 wam, bam, ba wam, bam, bam, ba wa do do wam, bam, ba wam. Yeah, and and he's very conscious. I'd say, like it's very intentionally written, and it's beautiful stuff. But it's also beautiful stuff to improvise too, if you're a player and want to play with some cool stuff. Well, just to maybe give you another demonstration of his kind of technical supremacy, again, pre-Overblow era, as a chromatic blues player, Let's try this one. This is from a little later, maybe like early '90s. The Boss. It sort of has everything. I don't think anyone ever quite sounded like that before. Ooh, man. That is great, really hard playing. And then, I mean, so the one thing is like, could you play that? And no, I can't play that on a chromatic or any kind of harmonica. Um, but then, could you hit the details of tone, vibrato? I think one of the first things that a harp player is liable to notice, even on a super fast workout like that, is how good the tone is note after note. Whoop. Like that's the first thing I'm gonna notice. Like he got a chunky ass tone on a chromatic too, like every time. But I mean, he so like across the board, he's there's not one feature of William Clarke that I'm going to centralize as making him distinctive, but he's got a amazing arsenal that he can call on. Play diatonic in multiple positions, play chromatic as he learned from George Smith, and then far surpassed George Smith just in terms of being able to do that technical workout. He's a master of tone, flow, speed, interesting set of influences, including Magic Dick, not only on that cut. And by that time, I'm thinking like, well, everyone should have listened to Magic Dick and should be throwing that in there. And he did it in many songs. I mean, like, in one thing I said about Magic Dick is that he's a great rhythm player. He invented rock rhythm harp, or just like a rhythm, playing the riff as a rhythm throughout a whole song. And Clarke does that in a couple songs in a very Dicky way. But anyway, so the late, great, really late, like died way too young. Somewhat like Butterfield or whatever, William Clarke.